All right, let's see if the waveform's there. Looks good. Awesome. Welcome everybody to episode, I don't know what solo episode this is. I didn't look before I started, but I'm sure if you read the title, you will already know, so you don't even need to hear this. Been really excited to have this specific conversation for a long time. I know I've been hinting at some big changes coming to the podcast and to the whole VonDubCast ventures in general. I know I always hint at the big plans I have for more than the podcast and where I want to take it. And I've always been very kind of secretive about it. And I've probably let hints go, and I'm probably not as secretive as somebody went back and listened to all 90 some odd episodes. They probably could put together a pretty clear picture of what I have planned, just from letting little pieces here and there go. But unless you've listened to all the episodes, you probably haven't heard it. So then all you hear is the last couple weeks. I've just keep saying there's something big coming. And that big thing is that I'm finally taking that step. I'm trying to take this full time and chase this dream of being a podcaster, and all the other things that come with it. And that was a tough decision. A lot's went into it. I've thought about it for a long time, and I've known that this was coming at some point. I just didn't know when. And I thought, because just, I guess before I can talk about that, I should just talk about how it's gone and what it's been like. So for the first year and 2 months or year and 3 months, whatever it's been since I started the podcast, it's been a lot to balance between work and the podcast. And in that time, my role at work changed a lot. Just with the pandemic and with just certain realities, I had to step up a lot, and I had to change what was required of me, as well as keep doing all the other things I was doing beforehand. And I liked it. It was exhilarating. It was exciting. It forced me to really go to the ends of what my capabilities were and really see what I had within the tank. And it was a lot of fun for a lot of time. But it was also a lot of stress, and it was also a lot of a lot to take on when I knew that I also really had a lot of love to put towards this podcast and towards bringing it to that point. So it was a lot to keep in the air, and it was starting to frustrate me in little bits. But as it went on, I got more and more frustrated, and I started to enjoy it less and less. And the last, I'd say 6 months of work have been some of the worst I've ever had. I've never been that depressed before in my life. I've never hated going in every day. I've just did not want to go. And it's not a testament to the people. It's, it's just the reality of the position that it was, and just the realities of kind of how we were sitting and what I did and things I brought onto myself, like this podcast, of just bringing on too much and burning the candle at too many ends, and also being too much of a perfectionist to ask for help and to push things off. And that got me into a really tough spot, and I was really unhappy. I would come home from work, and some days I would just lay face down on the carpet because I just didn't have it in me to do anything else. I just wanted to lay there and just feel the absolute depression that was running through my body. It was like lead. Like I just couldn't do anything. And that would be the feeling all day of just wanting to do that. From the moment I woke up and realized I have to go into work today and I have to go do this bullshit again. It wasn't pretty, guys. And I know I try to always talk about being open about mental health, and it kills me that I'm not that open. And what really gets me and what was depressing me more than I think any other thing was to know that every time I would come on this podcast and talk to you guys about honesty and being fully upfront, and to know that I had these huge things, like things at work and things in my personal life, that I'm not talking about because I can't. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like being told what to do, and I don't like being restricted, and I don't like being held back. And I felt like I was. And that was really irritating me, and I wanted to talk about how much frustration I had at work, but I couldn't because I'm still working. I guess that's the big change that's coming. Is I had a conversation with work this summer, right after my sister's wedding, and just said, you know what, I can't do this. I need to take a step back. I've been trying to find a balance and put up my own barriers of what I can give and what I can't at work, and it wasn't really working out how I wanted. It was just, I said I'm taking Fridays off. That was a big step, and I ended up working every Friday since, even though I haven't got paid for them, right? And that's not their fault. That's my fault for not being able to let go, but it's just the reality of the position that I'm in and the support that it has, and just the reality of keeping a company running when the industry's that bad and margins are so tight. Like, you just have to do these things. That's the reality of it. And to understand that, and to know, and to have people question you of, are you doing everything? Are you ripping us off? And it's like, if you only knew how hard this was just to keep everything on the rails, and mentally I can't handle that. And to watch people like my dad that have been in it for 30, 40 years, right? Like, and have totally hardened themselves to this, and that the emotional side doesn't get to them. That's not me. Every day, the emotional side would kill me, and I would come home and I would think about it, and to know that, you know, these people I really care about at work are being, are not being able to have the full breadth of what I want to give to them, and it's not my option, right? And to know these people that are working really hard and care a ton and want to do these things, we can't give it to them, and that's just not the reality, right? Like, if you wanted to, it sucks to see the reality of business as it stands when you don't have 100% control. It becomes a thing of, if you want it to succeed and you want everybody to have a job, people are going to have to get fucked over. That's kind of how it goes. And I do not agree with that. And I do not like that. And I think there's a better way. And I think that is something that's going to come with time. And I think that that's just a transitionatory period right now, where you can have the excuse of capitalism or shareholders or someone to just, oh, it doesn't matter. You know, like, if I didn't do it, somebody else, I'd get fired and I'd get replaced, and somebody else would make that call, right? Like, so much of the worst things in life, are because of that exact rationality right there of, you know, this is business. If I don't, you know, sure, we could make, you know, 1% less and have, you know, everybody in the company do way better and be way happier and stuff. But if I don't make that call, that's going to screw over everybody, but make us 1% less money, the shareholders are going to vote me out, and somebody else will be in there and they'll make that call anyway. So why not let me do it, right? Like, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And I'm obviously I'm exaggerating this out to prove the point, but when it's just that in a very small part every day, and you're making these calls every day of these things that you know, and you think, and you communicate on your podcast every week about there's a better way to do things. You don't have to do things like that. It's not a zero-sum game. You can lift everybody up. Everybody can win. And then to go out and not do that and not to live that is really tough for me. And I'm so excited to be able to dive in all the way. So come October 1st, I guess, is where I should start. Is come October 1st, I told them I'm done. I'm not working at all. It's not to say that I'm done with the company, because I love Max Fuels and I love what they built and I love what my dad has built over these years, and I have a real soft spot in my heart for it, but it's not up to me. It's not my baby. I didn't create it. I can't be taking on the worry of all those people that work within it, of keeping food on the table for them. I can't do that. That's not my thing. I want to build something like that for myself, where I build it from the ground up, and that's what I'm going to do. And I will gladly take upon my shoulders having the responsibility for other people's with something that I built with the values that I believe in, and doing it my way. I have no qualms about that. But when this was not built upon my values, this is not run upon my values, at the end of the day, it's not even our values at the end of the day, because have a corporate overlord that gets to set all these things, right? Like, and that's a whole different story. I've not been able to talk about that fucking shit. Like, working for a corporation is madness. I know there's probably 80% of people listening out there, unless you work for a small company, will know exactly what I'm talking about. It turns into, just at a certain size of scale, it turns into everybody's scared to make a mistake. Nobody wants to take a risk. And there's a couple really special people that hold water for a bunch of fucking cowards, yes men, that just plug things in, and it's awful, and it happens at every level of every giant corporation. There's a few really good people, really talented, really caring people that care about the business, and then they have just each one of those people carries water for probably 10 absolute fucking losers that do nothing, that are a waste of space, but just play this corporate game of brown nosing and know how to schmooze and say the right things and inclusivity and all this. And it's like, this is what's wrong with it. And to have those people, and to know that those people are making calls that affect your employees and whether they have fucking food on the table, that drives me nuts. Nothing drives me nuts like that. To know that I care about these people. I'm trying every day. I'm working my fingers to the bone to make sure that they have the best that they can have. And then these huge, huge decisions are completely taken out of our hands. That is tough. That's tough. And I don't want to be around that. And I don't want to grow this to the point where it becomes that. You have to insulate yourself at every level to prevent that from happening, because it's just natural, right? It's not anybody's fault. It's not that they're bad people or anybody's evil within that whole system. It's just the natural realities of human nature and what happens at levels, right? You don't want to take a risk. You don't want to, and then that feedback loops, and nobody wants to take a risk. And then everyone just looks to one person and say, okay, we agree with them, right? Like, and the dominoes that fall from that starting within a corporation is just unstoppable. And it goes top to bottom throughout all of them. And it's not, this is just my situation, but you see this in every corporation. This is exactly what happens. And you can work within it. I think everybody's probably doing this. They see that at least to some level. Some people might be very aware with it. Some people might not be aware of it at all, but they feel it a little bit and they just feel like something's wrong. And usually what people's response is just to, well, I'm going to half-ass this job. You treat me like this. I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to take an extra long bathroom break and I'm going to, you know, kind of stick it to you that way and this way. But the problem is I can't do that. Both within me, like just my values, it doesn't let me do that, I think, but also it's my fucking dad's company and I care about it a lot and I want it to succeed. So I can't just take my frustrations out on the company like everybody else probably does. You know, everyone else stuck within that system that steals a stapler or whatever it is. That doesn't help me. That doesn't fix the situation. It only makes it worse, right? And to be that extra level of trapped within it really scares me, right? And it's something I just naturally wanted to push against and always have. And just knowing that I made this decision a long time ago that I wanted to do this. It was everybody else that was holding me back from it and telling me you're crazy and you can't do this. And it's just at a certain point of my whole life has been just listening to what society or my parents tell me to do, you know, like go to high school, do this, you know, go to university, you're going to do business. Cause I knew I liked business, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? Just, you're going to follow this, you come home, you work, there's this job, it's going to be great. And all that was great. But at a certain point, I need to start making some decisions at least. Right. And that's terrifying, right? Like it's been so nice. Like it's been good and bad to be stuck in this place in between where I so believe in this podcast and believe what it can be and believe in myself of where I can take it. But then to have this job where I know I'm not putting anywhere near 100% into this podcast, not even near probably 15%, really, if I'm honest with you guys, which kills me to my soul, but it's also an armor because now this thing that I care about, even though it's not on strapped to a rocket ship like I want it to be, you know, just, you know, doubling in size every couple months, just huge off to the races type thing. Sure, I want that, but also I have the armor of saying, well, I haven't even advertised it. I haven't even put everything, you know, I'm just so busy with work right now. I can't put things toward it. And that is an amazing armor to have, but it's also the biggest thing holding me back, sorry. Right. Like that. No, I know that is when I know that I probably should reach out to this guest, or I probably should do this, or I probably should add this into the podcast. And I just go, well, I just don't have time for that right now, you know? And then when I look at the results and I'm not happy with them, I go, oh yeah, but I know I didn't do this and I haven't added this to it. And I haven't brought this person on that's going to help me with this. That's bullshit though, at the end of the day. And I want that fear and I want it to all be on my shoulders and I want it to be on me to make money with this. I'm excited to go into October 1st, knowing that September 30th, I have a really, really well-paying job with a lot of response with all this stuff. And then comes October 1st, I have zero income. I have to figure it out. I'm going to have to make money right away. I'm going to have to, get all these other ventures off the ground and start to make something for myself. And I've saved up a bit because I have been planning this. I have, you know, a little bit of cushion to get me through some months or whatever it is. But eventually that's going to run out. And the faster it runs out is the less money I bring in right off the hop is the faster that's going to run out. So but also nothing excites me like that more to finally be able to tell you guys and start that process come October 1st is, hey, October 1st, I need sponsors and I need them now. And I got to start and I can't be picky and I've got to start it from, you know, it'll probably just be local, you know, probably people from Slave Lake, if I'm honest with you guys, right? Like Slave Lake people that want to come on for a cheap sponsor because it's going to have to start off cheap, right? And get in the door and hopefully show them what I have as a salesman to sell their product that I believe in, because I'm not going to bring anything on this podcast to advertise that I don't believe in really thoroughly. But then also these companies are going to get to see what they get out of it and hopefully drive some business to them. And I'm going to be very upfront about them of, you know what, if you trust me enough to start sponsoring, you've got that spot locked up at that price. And then I'm just going to be always trying to bring in new guys. And if someone comes in that wants to, if you're paying, I'm just going to throw numbers, $20 a month for sponsoring and a guy comes in that's worth, or that says, hey, I'd pay $40 a month to sponsor. So then I just go to those people and say, hey, I have this guy coming in at $40 a month. Do you want that spot at $40 a month? I won't kick you out, but if I have that, you have your spot for as long as it makes sense financially for you, because that's kind of how you have to grow these things. And then you can always do it. And then I have all these other ventures that I want to get into that I can pass sponsors between, and I can do that stuff. So then, Yeah, I also want to, I know you guys have heard this, but I really believe in streaming, and I think that have a talent for it and I'm going to be good at it. So that's another thing that come October 1st, I'm going to be streaming weekly, at least weekly, if not multiple times a week. I really want to get into that. And I think there's some money to be made there too. I think, just with kicking the ideas around of how to roll sponsorships with, the podcast, and then how to monetize them with a stream. I think they're very different, but they can also serve each other in different ways. And I think that's probably going to need some different sponsors. Some will probably roll between the two of them, but I think that's a new era of advertising that you can really hit things from multiple sides, where you're getting a different demographic of people that are coming to it for different reasons, and you can hit them from both sides and have different longer forms, right? Like when you want to talk about advertising on a podcast, it's usually a couple minutes and it's heartfelt. It should be. You see it done well and you see it done poorly. And that's what I got to learn these last, 6 or 7 years of being obsessed with podcasts. You get to watch people, how they do it. Or are you just reading that copy boring? This is what they told me to write. This is what I've got to read to you guys. No, not a lick of passion in it. Or are you, making sure you hit the important parts of the copy, but you're talking about it from the heart of why this product means something to you. Why are you doing that stuff, right? And I'm so excited to be able to take that leap and see what I can do with it, because I've always got to see like, oh, I like how this guy does sponsorships. I like how this guy does, oh, I don't like that. And what's that mix going to look like for me? And it's probably going to suck at the start. Like I have to be honest with myself about that and honest with the people. It's going to take me a little bit, but I usually don't suck at something for long, right? Like you have to understand you're going to suck at the start, but just know that I'm going to put the effort in to make sure that it doesn't suck and it gets really good really fast. And then I think I have an endless ceiling of like what I can bring to people. And I think that's going to start to grow. And I think people are going to be lining up to sponsor on it, because they're going to see that it is a return like you can't get. If you want to pay, what's a typical sponsor, small town Alberta? Let's say you pay $5,000 to your local junior A or junior B hockey team to get a board sponsorship. So one of the boards on the hockey arena has your sponsorship on it. You pay $5,000, and you might see some from it. It's good to be seen in terms of actual conversions of people coming and buying your product or buying your service. You don't really know what you get. You pay just again throwing numbers out there, $20 a month, and you actually have like 4 or 5 people a month coming in. Like it's, even if it wasn't gangbusters numbers of just a couple people, but those 4 or 5 really believe, they understand what the product is, they're ready to buy, they've shown the 100% commitment because they believe in what they've heard on the podcast and that I wouldn't lead them astray. And they see that, oh man, if I can pay this much and get a couple, hey, well, why am I paying this much? Or maybe I got to throw more at it, and maybe I got to find more things like this that are advertising on this more in-depth level, and kind of leave that other model behind, because I think it's old. You see these companies like MeUndies and Magic Spoon cereal and all these companies that have just completely taken a company from nothing, not even existence, but having a good product and then advertising on this in a new model by getting people that actually care to advertise it, like podcasters and stuff. And they become these huge, huge, huge companies just based off the back of that. Nothing really else. Like a good product, don't get me wrong. And you have to, in business, you can't really leave any boxes unchecked. You need to have all that, but you can have all the boxes and just advertise it traditionally and leave yourself in a real big hole, because you don't really hit all the marks that you need to get people to actually feel something and buy, especially in today's age. Advertising is so piss poor. Like when you throw in hockey and the type of commercial that come on, like maybe 1 in 50 is half decent. That makes you chuckle a little bit, at least, to make you not want to, pull your eyeballs out. Like it's the worst. So the juxtaposition of a terrible advertising 9% of the time to someone that really cares about it and actually brings it through, I believe in it a ton. And I'm really excited for that process of jumping in and figuring out what those sponsors are, and working with, do you want to sponsor the podcast? Do you want to sponsor streaming? What kind of things can we make happen? And then go from there and really proof of concept, that what I've been saying all these past months, over a year of what the power of podcasts are. I want to put that to the test, and I want to prove it to people. I want to show people what this is, right? Like everyone thinks I'm crazy for leaving this amazing, amazing job that has all these perks and all this and stuff. And, I get that too. And part of me says like, well, all that stuff doesn't really matter. I just want to be happy, and I'm very unhappy with what I'm doing. And this is what makes me happy. And even if I make very, very little money and I'm struggling very hard, I'm still going to be happier than I am making all this money and being unhappy with it. But all that aside, I do really believe, I don't think this is as crazy as people think it is. I think this is going to make a lot of money. It might take a while, and it might be a lot of struggle, and it might be a lot of effort, but I don't know. I think everyone thinks I'm crazy. I think I'm crazy like a fox. And it's a weird feeling to bet on that. And it's one thing to say it, one thing to bet on it. And that's what I'm doing. Or that's what I think I'm doing, at least, is come October 1st, I'm betting on it. I'm all in. This is what I'm doing. I am a podcaster. You know, like right now, everyone asks, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, well, I'm a marketer for Suncor. We sell bulk fuel and lubricants. We have, card locks and all this stuff. And also I do a podcast on the side. I'm a podcaster. I'm a streamer. I'll probably let you guys in on a couple other ideas I have with the podcast as well in a little bit. But that's what I want to be telling people. And that's what's going to bring a smile to their face. That's going to be something I'm proud to talk about. Not that I'm not proud to talk about the job that I did. I'm extremely proud of it. This is what's so tough about leaving this job is I am so amazingly proud of in that last 4 years specifically, not to mention the 10 or whatever before it. What we accomplished and how far we came is amazing. And just like, really something that we should be proud of, and I am proud of it, and I'm not, and that's why I would never leave it completely. And it's a bit of a tough thing where I was always trying to find these ways to just gain myself a little bit of space to try out some of these new ventures, but not leave it completely. But it came really apparent to me that that's just not how it's going to work. There's so much that needs to be done, and there's such a gravity there that if I don't cut it completely, get all these ventures on their own, and then add back slowly, hey, I'd still like to do the high level, business meetings. I'd still like to do this. I'd still like to do that. And to add that back in, that's what I'm excited for. And I feel I can do that. And I feel like I'm already putting plans in place to kind of keep myself sharp on that side of the ball too, because, I think it's one thing to know that when you're in and out in the office every day, doing that high level business stuff, this is the other thing, and this is going to sound crazy. This is obviously my ego talking, but I feel like after that 4 years of what I experienced with the type of situations we were dealing with, the type of integrations we took on, like these huge multi-million dollar deals that like were bootstrapped together and left to us to figure out and what we did with them and how far we came considering what we're up against. I feel so confident I could walk into any company right now at whatever level and build myself up and be, have the same responsibility I just had in another company. But why not do that at a comedy club? Why not bring my skills that I know I can do, and I know I've proved it on this thing of, this oil and gas type thing that I'm kind of passionate about. It just by geography at the very least, growing up in Alberta, it's hard not to have a little bit of passion for oil and gas. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's not anything like my passion for sports or for MMA or for podcasting or for science or for any of that. It's not even close. So why not take all those skills I learned that I can clearly, if I can let my ego talk, I clearly excel at, and apply that in some other domain that I really care about. I just can't imagine my mental health wouldn't be at least a little bit better, and I could probably put some cash in my pocket, right? So even if this does crash and burn and people hate it and, nobody's listened to it, whatever, I highly doubt that, and I have a lot of confidence that it will. But it's also not that scary because I know I could, worst case in Ontario, I could go back and do the exact same thing I was, just knowing that, at least I took that try and I took that swing and I went out on a limb for it, yeah, I'm excited to put my belief in this model and what podcasting is to the test. And another idea I really like, it's kind of thrown around, it's almost cliche now, of just this idea of all these people have this, this 10-year plan of kind of where they want to see it. And so do I, obviously. Right. And that's what I'm looking at. And I think it's very applicable for things like a podcast or a stream or a vlogging channel, whatever it is, a YouTuber. Odds are it's probably gonna be 5 to 10 years. That's the usual model of it. Starts slow, it grows, and the exponentiality of building an audience and having people talk about it and building some buzz. That's just kind of how it works, right? And to understand that and to not get disheartened to where you quit, because that's the other thing you see is because of that 5-10 year time range on it, people quit all the time. There's this number everyone throws out. Do you know how many there's over 1 billion podcasts? If you look at it, the ones that have actually posted an episode in the last 90 days, there's like a couple 100,000. There's not that many because this shit isn't easy. There's not that many, and people quit. And the ones that last, like when you look at 95% of podcasts don't last more than 3 months. Yeah, obviously, because people don't want to put in the work and they don't want to deal with that timeline of what it is. But also, this is the idea I like to look at is So even understanding that this is probably going to take 5 to 10 years to get it to that plan and to have that vision of what I have in my head with the studio and the help and all these different ventures and, you know, videographers on hand. So if you want to hop on a plane and go see a John Mayer concert down in the States somewhere, you can have a vlogger that comes in and captures it all and you monetize it and all that. Like, yeah, that's probably going to take 5 to 10 years, but why not try and do it in 2? And that's what I'm after right now. Is my goal is to take that 10-year plan of where I see myself in 10 years and just go all in come October 1st. And by, you know, October 1st, 2 years from now, I want to be where I see myself right now in 10 years. I want to be there in 2. And I know I'm probably going to fail at that, but I'm damn sure that trying to accomplish 10 years worth of shit in 2 years is going to get me a lot further along. And I might look like I am, you know, like in 2 years, maybe I'll be at where, you know, 5-year mark or 10, you know, maybe I'll do it. Who knows? You never know with this shit, but I damn sure know that if you don't try and you don't give it 100%, you don't go all in on it like that, you're never going to get there. That's all I know. And that's where I'm taking that swing at it. So yeah, I'm excited. So yeah, the streaming thing and streaming, it's not just video games. Like I've so many ideas. What I'm really loving seeing on Twitch right now is that there's all these different genres, right? You see somebody streaming, this many people watching, this is the category, like video games, blah, blah, blah. And there's one just called Just Talking. And damn, if it hasn't been a year and a half of just talking, right? That's what this is. That's what, especially the solo episodes of this, you know, like, I don't know if I'm going to be streaming just pure video games. I definitely have a plan. I have some ideas to stream some guitar and just sing and teach and show people how to play guitar. And then if you have a good song that somebody wanted to learn and you there's a couple laughs along the way of showing people, you know, on the stream and talking with your chat and figuring out how to do it. Then you take that 5-10 minutes of what that was and you clip it up, you put it on YouTube, and that's just another video. It's another piece of content. They just, the ways that I'm excited to bring this all together and just experiment and try and just have the freedom to try whatever I want. And some of it I'm going to love and some of it I'm probably going to hate. And, oh, well, I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to do that completely different if I try it. But I really like it. And this is another piece of it is I'm excited about this episode specifically to let you guys know, because come October 1st, I'm going to have to ask something of you guys. And I have been asking something of you guys the whole way of, I always say, you know what, if you want to follow the social medias, if you want to reshare posts, that's huge. And I really appreciate it. Right. And that's great. But that's kind of my attempt of saying, you know what, at this point, it's all free. I'm not really putting in 100% effort. So I don't expect you guys to put 100% effort into supporting it and growing it with me. Right. Like, but come October 1st, that changes. And I'm going to be asking of you guys a lot of what the only power that a podcast has is the power of their audience and how much they believe and what kind of an audience you build, right? It doesn't matter if you have 100 people listening versus 1,000 people listening. If those 100 are fucking diehard and they listen and they, if I'm going to be this upfront about what helps a podcast and what goes into it, when we get those sponsors on the podcast, if it's something that lines up with your life or you can afford it, you got to go out and support it. You got to ride with me. You got to go to that. And I'm going to be asking that of you guys, and, sharing the post. That's a big deal, like these type of things. And that's what I'm excited for, is to kind of rally the troops of, it wouldn't have felt right to do this any time earlier than when I'm going 100% all in. I can't ask that of my audience to ride with me if I'm not going to fucking, put my skin in the game and give up everything I have, sell all my shit, live like a broke ass college student again at that time, right? Because that's what I want to do. I mean, because I have so many ventures to jump into here, I probably will end up staying in Grand Prairie for a while, just because, just the realities of trying to get these things off the ground at the start. But then eventually I do want to move back to Edmonton. I'm very excited about that. All my friends live in Edmonton pretty much. I don't really have any friends in Grand Prairie here, which is another piece that I've been really unhappy for. And it's like, I've had no friends here. I'm very unhappy, and it's do this, and I get paid very handsomely to do it. But if the money is losing, if I'm finding that there's other things I value more than money, that's holding me less and less to be here. And it's becoming, that resentment is growing and growing of, man, is it really, like, do I really need to drive 8 hours in a weekend to, just to see some friends? Like that's quite a bit. And also for the longevity of the podcast, I can't get fucking guests to, fly out to Grand Prairie, Alberta. Okay, so just fly, 6 hours up to Canada and then hop on this tiny little plane, and fly another hour up to Grand Prairie to come to this tiny little place. Like, that's just not that's not feasible. Or if I need to, last minute fly out, Joe Rogan tells me tomorrow, hey, I'll have you on the podcast. You just got to get down to Texas. Like I need to be in a hub. That's what goes with this, right? And if I'm going to build a studio to have to actually bring guests into, I need to be there. So I'm excited about that, but I just don't know if that's going to happen right off the hop. That's going to be something that probably comes more into maybe around Christmas. I have no idea, frankly, at this point, because I have all these plans of, things I want to do with my freedom. Like I'm so excited to get into jujitsu and to read again and to just take an hour each day and just to invite guests and to work on the podcast and to work on the streaming and to work on all these things, to not have my whole, the only time I can ever put to those is, after work when I'm fucking depressed from hating my life all day, or on a weekend of just the only things I'm working towards of just that some free time on the weekend to not think about work and not just be fucking hating my life. I can put that towards actual thing that I want, right? Like to think of having a schedule where I can do whatever I want, to not what society thinks is going to better me, to what I think is, like I think my best day looks like, an hour of reading, a couple meditations, some journaling, guest inviting, maybe a podcast, maybe streaming, like these type of things, eating healthy. Like that's what I think. And I'm so excited to test that hypothesis of just personal growth, and how come October 1st, it's going to be growing at a level I've never seen before, because I'm actually putting everything towards my goal and who I am and being better as a person, because that's what all this comes upon. Like really what I'm betting on is that I can become that special person that people want to listen to. And I think I'm trying that in a sense already, but I'm also living this other life. I'm living this life of this, not worker bee, but I don't know, just not the life that I'm envisioning, and to go out and try that and to prove it to myself mostly, but then to everybody else that's listening and following along, because that's another thing I've talked about. This whole journey is one of my favorite things with podcasts, is getting to follow along with somebody else's journey and somebody taking these big risks, and to see it and to watch along and to hear all the highs and lows, because it's going to suck at times too, guys. And I'm going to try and be as honest with you guys about that as well, about the highs that I get out of it and the lows that I get out of it. And you guys can follow along too. And maybe you can apply that some way with what you want to do, and maybe some venture that you've dreamed of for a long time, but never really taken that full swing at it, and always had those excuses, or that armor of the excuses like I talked about of, well, I didn't really give it 100%. I did. That was just kind of a side venture. No, that never was what this was going to be. From the moment I decided to do that, I knew that this was the eventuality. And I thought maybe I would be able to, I don't know what I thought. I thought maybe I'd be able to find a better balance. I thought maybe people would see what I see a little sooner and start to maybe like help more, or start to see, oh, you know what, this is truly what you're passionate about. Maybe take a step back from work, where that just never happened at any point. And, this is a weird thing to talk about, like the belief that I have in myself, but it's been an experience to see the belief that I get from others. And there's been some people that believe in me so much and give me so much fire, because they're saying, no, I see exactly what you see. You've got this. But then there's people very close to me that either with their words or with their actions very clearly do not believe, and are very worried and very scared about this move. And it's not going to lie, it's hurtful on a certain level, right? And you know that it comes from a place of love, and they just want you to be secure, and they see you leaving all this security for all this risk, right? And what I see is, I'm leaving all this mental anguish and resentment and all this to freedom and living my life how I want to live it and all that stuff. And the security, fuck security. Like, would you want to be secure and miserable, or free, or, risky but free? Like, that is just so obvious in my own head that it really frustrates me that people could even have a moment of confusion on that, because that is so deep within me, something that is so based on, the stupidest thing to ever say, my inner truth. Like, my inner truth is freedom. That's what it is. Like, at the very base of it, I hate being told what to do. That's why I hated school so much. I hated seeing these teachers that at 8 or 9 years old, I'm like, I think I might be smarter than you. I don't want to be told what to do by you. And that's what I think of everything in life. And that's that huge ego piece that I talk about, that I think you need to do if you want to be a podcast and you want to have people listen to you. You have to have a bit of an ego, because that the whole venture is egotistical. It's saying, hey, everybody listen to me. Like, I have something to say, which is pure ego at the end of it. But you have to keep that balance, because if you just give in entirely to that side, to that ego of, hey, I'm the smartest, everybody listen to me, no one's going to want to fucking listen. Who wants to listen to that fucking guy, right? But luckily, I also have this searing self-doubt and huge body image issues that I've struggled with my whole life, that and real negative spiraling thoughts that just make me hate everything I do and second guess and go back to the drawing board on everything. And I think it's the combination of those two things of somehow ping-ponging between this, I am the greatest, nobody can touch me, I am going to be fucking the king of the world, and I am the biggest piece of shit, like why does anyone even listen to this, why am I even trying, right? And somehow ping-ponging between that and trying to find that balance so you're never too far to one side, because neither of them really serve you at the end of the day. Just finding that middle ground, but knowing that you have that full capacity within you. Because I think if you don't have one of those things, I think that's what really gets you off the road. If you don't ever have it within you to see the full capability and the full ceiling of what you could be, your full capability. No, capability is not the right word. Your full, there's a word there. I'm sure everybody in their car is screaming it right now. Like full everything you could be. I think that's an issue if you can't fully see that and fully articulate that to yourself or to others. But I also think that's the other side of it too. If you lack that, harsh critic, that whatever that is inside us that keeps us moving forward, I think it's, just evolution. That's human nature, is to have that within you. If you lack a good, healthy piece of that too, well, now you're just one of those people on fucking social media just posting about how everything you say is right and it doesn't matter, you haven't really researched any of it. That's when you're one of those people. And that's one of these other things too, is this has been tough throughout COVID and knowing how much research I've done myself and how nuanced my position is on all of this. And I feel like anything but the narrative puts you in this one camp, even if you're only one step over from it. Like you are so much closer to the mainstream narrative than you are to any of these crazy things on the edge. But one step off of it, you get labeled with all this, and it's like, hey, I just got some questions here, because there's clearly some conflicts of interest, and there's clearly some people making out like bandits on this, and there's clearly some misinformation. And the fact that they're taking away all conversation around it blows my mind and really frustrates me. But I also have been struggling because I can't be honest about it, because I'm living this double life again, where on the podcast I'm talking about, hey, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, these mask mandates, this is where this should be applied, this is why rolling it out this way is misleading people and having and creating more fear and more misunderstanding, because you're not just treating people like adults and telling them the actual realities of how this disease spreads, what the actual risks are, all that. And they think that they just have to treat everybody like children because they won't listen otherwise. I say all that on the podcast, and then what do I go into work? I put all these things in place, treat them like children, just put all the safe space to make sure, because at the end of the day, in the position I'm in, it's not my job to, I just have to fill in. I have to follow the rules. I have to make sure that, they said we have to have masks. We got to have masks, this is it. And sure, I probably don't follow them 100%, right? Like if there's two employees that I know don't believe in COVID, don't think it, are just frustrated by all of this, and they work all day, 6 inches from each other in a tiny little room, and they don't really come into contact with anybody else. And I'm going to tell them, you have to wear masks that whole time, even though I know full well that's not where masks work. If you're going to be in the same room where there's not much ventilation and you're going to be there for 8 hours, those masks don't do shit. That's the dumbest fucking thing. So I might, say to them, not to the company, but just like, hey, yeah, you guys have to wear your mask. Wink, right? And then I tell them, in that room, that doesn't really make a difference. It's up to you guys. If it makes you feel safe, do it. If not, don't do it. But for the most part, I'm putting these rules in for all these people to make sure that they feel safe. And it doesn't matter. Even if 99% of the entire company and all the employees said, this is kind of silly, these rules are dumb. Even if one person felt more comfortable, you have to put them in. So I'm living this weird life where I can't be completely honest on the podcast about, what I think about all this stuff, because I have, a job, and I can't be completely flying in the face of, all the things that they're putting in and mandating. And I can't, fully, people know that these rules I'm putting in place at work, and that this is not actually what I feel, right? It's weird to be in this position where you're torn and you're living this double life. And that's at every point feels like what this last year and a half has been. It's just this double life of trying to be one thing and really believing in one thing, but then also having to just every day put on this mask of like this other person that you just have to be, because that's what the situation requests of you. And that hurts, and that just drags at your soul after a while, of just this unnatural, just the absolute opposite of everything I've talked about on here, of just being genuine and vulnerable in yourself and who you are at each level, and not putting any of that away for what the situation asks of you. Even though that is a great skill, I think that's one of the biggest things that makes me so successful, is that I have that ability to bring out whatever version of myself is necessary for that situation, right? But when when it's over and over again, there's big pieces of you that have to be cut off for that to work. Well, change your situation, right? Like yeah, that's a great skill to have to bring whatever to bear to the table that you need. But also, if you're forced to cut off huge pieces of yourself every single day to be that person, maybe you need to change your situation so that you don't need to bring that out of you every time. You don't need to deal with the mental anguish of that side, right? So that's been, that's been fun with COVID. I'm excited to just have nobody beholden to me, where I can say exactly what I think and what I want on here. And I'm not speaking for all these other people. I'm not putting myself in this weird scenario where, you know, other people's safety are within my hands of the calls that I make. It's hard to speak honestly and to have people's safety in your hands, because you want to just, even though I know this is stupid, I'm just going to do this to make you feel safe, right? And that's fine too. But then you also have the other side of people like, fuck, hey, I know you don't believe, why are you pushing this shit through? Why are you helping them? Why are you doing all this? It's like, because I'm in a fucking shitty situation. You think I don't want to fucking tell this all to go, you know, or have some real conversations about, hey, these are the things that work. These are the things that don't work. This is what we're going to do. This is what's going to keep us safe. But this doesn't look like what the government is saying. This is a very different thing. Like, this is serious and we have to take it serious. And these are the actual steps that work that are going to keep us safe. But that's not allowed either. You can't just buck the trend and say, you know more than fucking all these other people. Even though, the thing I don't like about all this is that everything comes back to the WHO. Every little COVID awareness thing, like as per the WHO, right? Like, this has some misinformation as per the WHO. All the YouTube and all these big tech have just said, like, we are just taking what the World Health Organization, the WHO, what they say, that is it. Anything that steps a toe off of that line, that is misinformation and you're wrong and you can't even discuss it, right? We're going to shut down, we're going to censor, we're going to pull things off. And time again, for the past year and a half, the WHO has just shown how compromised they are, how in China's pocket they are at every step of the way. And then just to watch this all, it's same as the corporate structure. If nobody wants to take a risk, we just believe in the WHO. This is what we do. Then we just follow these things. It's like, yeah, but what happens when that breaks down? And now you've predicated this whole system with all these crazy rules and these crazy powers you're handing out. And it all comes back to one single pillar. And if that pillar is compromised, your whole plan goes to shit. Not to say that it is, but just to make a plan where it's that risky, because now you're basing every single thing, every conversation that people are even allowed to have. You're basing people's freedoms off of one organization. And what are organizations? Full of people. What are people? Corrupt. I mean, not every person, but they're corruptible, let's say. And, you know, power corrupts ultimately. That's a lot of power. And that was a lot of power before. And now they're the ultimate power. They are the ultimate czar of the whole world. The whole world spins on these people. How is there not, just knowing that, even if they are completely above board and they're doing everything right, they're not in anyone's pocket, they're not financially compromised, they are the gold standard, they're awesome. Even if that is true, if you set up a system where all these crazy power grabs are all set up upon this one thing, they should be continually audited in a very transparent way where the whole world gets to see, okay, so the WHO is dictating to the entire world how we're going to operate, who gets to go to grocery stores, who doesn't, who gets to this and that. Who are these people? And what kind of accountability do they have to us, to the people of the world, not just to any, like, that's my question of, like, how does the WHO not have their top 100 executives on some sort of podcast or long form content where people could ask them questions weekly so that we know that we are holding these people to an account, right? Hey, why the fuck are we restricting outdoor events still? Why? Questions, right? That's not to say that I'm not saying there's microchips in those things that they put inside, right? You don't even want to say words anymore with all the algorithms and shit, but, like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, can we at least have a little bit of transparency so that we can find the middle ground and we can have some conversations and we can figure some of these things out, right? Like, just, there's so many things that make zero sense on this, right? Like, so many of these restrictions that have never worked, they were never going to work. They have science proving that they're not going to work, but they keep going back to them and back to them and back to them. And the greatest switcheroo of all is now, it doesn't matter. You could feel the pressure building and people being like, this is fucked. None of this shit makes sense. These restrictions are dumb. Like, they're not following science. Like, none of this is ridiculous, right? And they're just building. And I was thinking, like, oh, people are getting excited. People are starting to realize this. People catching on. There's people saying this. And then as soon as the vaccines rolled out and it got to the point, they switched the whole game and they said, you know, all that anger, all that frustration people have with this thing, and they just push that all onto the unvaccinated. Now you could see it. You could see it happen. It was like amazing to watch. Just overnight, all that frustration now gets taken. All the frustration of the government over this ridiculous. They don't care about all the mandates because now the mandates are the unvaccinated's fault. Oh, I don't care if it makes no sense that they restrict outdoor events because there's like no transfer outside. I don't care about that because it's the unvaccinated fault. They're the reason that we're restricted outside. It's not that the restrictions were dumb the whole time. We've completely forgot that there was ineptitude top to bottom in terms of how this rolled out. We've completely forgot about that because now we have a target, and that's how they do this every time. Instead of, as soon as all the pressure creeps up and people start to realize that the Democrats and the Republicans are all the same people, they just find a way to split it into two on the ground level and have people fight in between each other. And it works every fucking time. And that's my issue. I have no issue with people getting vaccinated. I have no issue with people not getting vaccinated. I support you all, and I think there's room for it. But like the fact that they changed this whole game, so now it's just, again, it's an us and them thing. It's dehumanizing the other. It's the same playbook over and over again. Just like this podcast has only been around a year and a half, and like I feel like I've shown very, not perfect examples, but at least, proof of concepts of this exact thing multiple times of how they do this every time it gets close to people waking up and realizing what the game is. They just find a new thing. It was mask and unmet, right? We talked about the mask and unmet. All these restrictions are so stupid and have so many holes in them, but instead, and people start to get frustrated with that, but then they just find something like mask versus unmet and they just get everyone fighting between. And now all that goes out the window. The fact that the restrictions and the rollouts and the power that we're giving up let's not say that it's unnecessary off rip, but it needs to have a discussion around it to deem it necessary. You can't just say, no, this is what it is. This is what's necessary, because now it shuts that whole conversation down. Is there are games that they play to get everyone fighting, because now there's no conversation. We're not allowed to fight over. We're not allowed to not fight, but converse over what the best rollout is, because now everyone's busy fighting, right? So I'm excited to finally have full freedom just to say whatever I want and not have people beholden to me that, I can't say, I probably shouldn't say that because, I'll get in trouble at work or whatever, which I never did. And saying all this was all within my own head of what I thought. I shouldn't say that. Some of my employees listen and I love that and they're awesome. And those are the employees. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this isn't 100% happy that I'm leaving work, because there's so many employees that I love. Like I could go on for 10 minutes here and just name by name employees that we have and how much they mean to me. And that's the saddest part of it, is I almost feel like I'm leaving. I'm giving up on them. I'm leaving my post. Like I'm going AWOL on them, and it's like, fuck. First of all, no, that's not. I'm always here. My number doesn't change. You can call me anytime and I can do those things. But the fact that so many of them too have believed in the podcast too while going through all this, and have watched me suffer through, and they know, and they're the ones, and that was really exciting. It was sad and exciting to go through and have this conversation with all my employees about, hey, this is kind of what I'm doing. This is what's going to change come October 1st. Like, I'm still there. My email hasn't changed, my number. Like, call me if anything comes up. I don't care. Like, I'll handle it. I just can't be that beholden to, I have to be here from 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. all the time, even though fucking never was anyway. That's a thing. Where was I even going with that? Right. I guess that I'm really going to be sad to leave this. Oh, that's where it's going. So it's not that, I was ever getting in trouble from, Max Fuels or from Suncor or for anybody. It was all within my head. I know I just was self-censoring because I knew what could come, even though nothing ever really did. It's just the thought of not being completely honest with yourself and holding back. And I'll say this differently, because if I wasn't beholden, I would, and even though I know I probably could say it and I'd be fine, nothing would come of it. Just the thought of, well, there could be some blowback from it, so I'll probably just say it this way. I can say it 90% as good in these words that probably don't hit the way I want to say it, but it is what it is type of thing. So I know that it's all in my head, and that's not changing, and all that. Where to go next with it? Where to go next? So yeah, I'm really excited. I am sad. I'm scared, terrified. Like, this is a huge move, and everything's changing, and to actually physically move, and like, I want to sell all my shit and live life light, and just all the headache that comes with all of that, right? Like, it's just it's a lot to take in, and I'm very worried about it, and I'm very nervous, and I'm very scared, but I'm also so excited that it covers all that up. I guess I could go into the other ideas. So I have a million ideas of where I want to take, but there's three that I want to jump into right away. So first one is this podcast, what you guys have seen, but just taking it to the next level of treating it seriously, making sure that, I have everything I can give to the podcast. I want to start, listening back to them, making clips. Like there's so many things just with the podcast alone of what you guys have currently seen that could be taken so many steps forward just with a little bit of effort. And I want to do that first and foremost. I want to make the podcast better. I want to make it, just audibly better. I want to have, it more crisp. I want to have all that stuff. I want to have more things to go with it where, on the YouTube channel, you can skip ahead. You can see like the topics of what we talk about. So if you don't want to listen to a full 3 hours, you can go through and just check some out. I want to get, a clips channel going where you're actually putting out little pieces of content from the bigger conversation, just little topics, a couple minutes to 20 minutes, 25. I want to do that. And then the streaming side of it, right? I already told I've always had a really soft spot for streamers. I've loved it. I've had a real dream of trying streaming for a long time, and I have a really strong feeling that I'm going to be good at it. And it's going to be something that I can have success with. So I'm really excited to jump into that. And I think that between the podcast and the, and streaming, they're very different, but they also have a lot of the same things. And I feel like one will help the other. And I feel like diving in 100% on both will really help, grow at a certain level. Like I think if you were just to jump in and be a podcaster and just do that as much as you could, I think you're going to get better at a certain rate. And I think you can only podcast so much. But then if you have something like streaming where you're going to say like 5 years of experience podcasting is like, 10 years if you did that 5 years with podcasting, streaming, and other things, maybe another podcast you did, right? Because it's just more experience you're getting. And that's what I see of the excitement building is like, I can build a whole life around all these things I care about where everything builds in. It's all hub and spoke. Like the podcast is the hub, but all these other ventures I'm going off all build into the podcast and help the podcast, and the podcast helps them. And then you can plug other people into that, where now if you start to actually make inroads in that system, you can plug other people into that where maybe they have a podcast or they have something else and you can help advertise them. They can help advertise you. Maybe it's a stream or whatever it is. And I'm really excited about that. But then the third area that I want to do is also, I guess it's also podcasting in a way, because I always have to tie everything back to podcasting. But the thought of leaving this job altogether, not having any sort of business side the podcast is a business. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be lots of business to keep me busy, but the real high level, the corporate stuff, that stuff does have a draw to me at a certain level. I just don't like having the skin in the game of something I don't care about, having to be able to see the people's faces, but I do like helping out, just looking logically at a situation of what does this business need? What is standing in its way? What is its strong points? What makes it special? What is the thing they have to index into if they want to find long-term success? And I really like that. And I don't want to leave that. So an idea I have and something I'm going to be starting come October, this is another one of the three-pronged, right? The podcast, the streaming, and then this is, VDC Business Consulting, VonDubCast Business Consulting. It's going to be, me bringing people on that have a business or a venture, whether it's already running or something they'd like to start up, and just they can rent out my time. It's going to come at a cost, and we can just have a discussion, open and vulnerable, with all the experience that I have. And that experience comes with 15 odd years of watching one of the best business people I've ever seen, my dad, and his colleagues' work. I think that is something that can't be overstated of where I think my business acumen comes from. Then 4 years of university. Honestly, I would put that as the lowest. Like when I'm ranking all these things, like I would put my experience watching my dad first. I would put, the last 4 years of actually doing the job, that's second. I can't even hold a candle to what I've learned in the last 4 years compared to all this other stuff, right? But then, university is probably below that. For actually what I learned in university, I would put running that Lister Dodgeball League and learning how to hire and fire people and doing that. I'd put that above it. Then the university of the skills I learned there. But I learned how to party and I learned how to be around people, so I don't want to totally dog it. But I have all these things and I have all this acumen and I believe in myself of what I can bring to people. And I've proved it to myself of just this life I live has allowed me to have some conversations with some really high level business people and to be able to hold my own with them and give them good ideas and pass it on. I believe that I have a lot of skill there and I don't want to give that up. So I'm going to be starting October 1st. Anybody that has a business that they want to start up, they can come rent some time, whether it's an hour, whether it's 3 hours, whatever it is. And we can just have a discussion. We can try and bring their business forward and to bring it out, bring out the ideas within it that are going to make it special and going to make it grow and going to make it succeed. But then, because I have to bring everything back to a podcast, the other idea I have with that is I also want to do it so that there's going to be times where business consulting kind of has to be done behind closed doors. If you're talking money, if you're talking numbers, if you're talking ideas where, somebody else can come in and just scoop your ideas, it's not always something that can be done out open on the table, but there's going to be times where it can. And that will probably be businesses that are already running, maybe smaller businesses that are just trying to find their footing and they don't have that proprietary thing. They're still trying to find out what that proprietary mix of what that is. But for those special cases, I want to do something where I waive the fee, where you don't have to pay nothing for this business consulting. You get VDC business consulting for free. But what we do is we do it on a podcast and we have this conversation openly. And like I said, that's not going to work for a lot of them because, there's proprietary, there's all these things, just the fear of putting your things out there, of your highs and your lows and bringing that vulnerability. But I think there's going to be some cases for it. And I think it's going to do a lot of things. I think it's going to be very interesting and cool for people to listen to, because I think business is fun. And I feel like a lot of people get locked away from these conversations that happen in the boardrooms and behind closed doors. And it's fascinating. And I think so I think people are going to really enjoy listening to it. B, I think it's going to be amazing for those businesses because it's an open, honest way for people to really, that's the best advertising you can get, is really openly talking about the passion behind this business and why you care about it, why you want it to succeed and what you think the strengths are. Nothing sells a business better than that. C, nothing sells my skills as a business consultant better than showing what I do in action in real time, because I believe in it. I would do it in front of people all the time. I have an insane amount of confidence within the business realm of what I have to offer and what I could add to these companies. So I think it just is a no-brainer, right? And then maybe you get a little bit of advertisement on that too, and now it ticks all the boxes. It's making money all 6 ways around, right? Like 6 ways from Sunday. So that's an idea I really had a lot of passion about. I've been really excited about for a long time. And I feel like that's something I can build. And I feel like that's a team I can build where I find other people that I believe in there. And this is another thing, is I have all the skills to look at it. Business is business. This is how we make money. I can turn that I've been doing that for 4 years of just turning my emotional brain off and just looking at things logically. And what I think that has done is it allows me to show that there's a different way forward of, hey, like, what I've been really proud of over this last 4 years is a lot of times when you do that and you look at things logically, you can sometimes win one for the little guys. You can say, you know what, like, yes, business-wise, this is the best business decision. When you look at it logically, this is what we need to do. But we can give up a little bit here. We can be that company we want to be. We can believe in our values, still have a really successful portion, but, of just looking at things logically, but also keeping intact that emotional side of you at least a little bit, like I do, that I can never completely separate away. Like I see these amazing business people where they just cut that emotional side off completely because it doesn't serve them in that room. And what I like to do is just, I've almost, instead of cutting it off completely, I've just disassociated where I can look at it logically. I can find the best call, even no matter who's hurt, but I can still recognize who's being hurt in the situation to at least bring that up. So at least, if this is the call we're making, it's not going to make a decision either way. At least we've brought up the human impact side and we can look at it, right? And I feel like that's what's going to be cool to highlight, is how to do that within business. And I think that's something that more people learn, is that you don't need to be 100% ruthless business all the time. And you can find more success of being honest and open with your consumers and with your customers about how you're doing things and what you value. And if you can start to put a dollar amount on these other values that don't come with it, you can start to mix those two things together. You can run a business how you would want to and how you believe in it, and also make a lot of money on top of it. So that I'm really excited to do. And that's something where, again, come October 1st, I'm going to need your guys' help. I'm going to have to ask you to rack your brains for who that company is. Who's someone that that you think would be willing to do that? Whether it's the behind the closed doors of, and obviously when I start, it's probably going to be pretty cheap, right? Because I want to get it off the ground. So if you know somebody that's just starting a new venture, if you know somebody that's, because there's so many people doing their side hustles and they're, selling everything and hopping in a van, they're doing workout videos, right? Like that's the type of people, somebody that's passionate about something that matches up that you think I'd get along. Like, I'm so excited to be able to take all my business knowledge and help apply that to those little guys that are just trying to make it big and doing the same thing I am, chasing a dream. Like, I would love to do that. Nothing would make me happier. And to highlight these awesome stories of these people that are doing that and what makes them special and what makes them tick, and hopefully send some people their way. That's exciting, right? That's exciting to me. And I guess another piece of this too, I said it was 3 pieces, the podcast, the streaming, and then this business consulting idea, which also kind of has a podcast aspect. And then the other thing too is I also want to take these solo podcasts and make it a weekly thing and make it something serious where, I have topics and I have somebody that maybe comes in every week and helps me with it and is somebody to bounce off of. I don't mind doing it like this where it's just into a camera, and I'll probably always do that at some level, but I think I'd also like to have something structured with topics and things to, current events that I could do once a week. So I'd really like to make sure I would at least, release one solo episode a week, whether it's like this or whether it's something more structured, like I said. I'd like to release, an interview episode, like the typical VonDubCast goodness you guys have been getting, just step it up to that next level like I talked about. And then as well as that is I would also like to start other podcasts, like more niche podcasts. Like if I would love to start an MMA podcast with someone. The only thing I need is that I feel like I have enough interview and just solo ideas. Now is time to double up with someone. It's one thing to start and to dive in and grow with just your base of the people that and your social media and stuff, but to tie in with somebody else and to double your output of somebody else that's really passionate about MMA or really passionate about video games or really passionate about science or any of these things, like any of these ideas, and to start podcasts with them and start to grow those. And to go into it with this idea of this is probably not going to be forever, because there's so many different areas where I want to bring podcasts into and so many different genres that I want to dive into. I'll probably, we could do it for a year, do it for 2 years, hopefully get it off its feet, hopefully, and then maybe do it once a month or something like that. There's just so much to the podcast game that people haven't even touched on that I really truly believe in, that I think just all, and that same idea, this is all feeding back to your core ones, like your core podcasts that things grow off of and your streaming and all that. All these different ventures just build upon and they all service each other, right? And that's what's really exciting to me, is to just, I believe so wholeheartedly in that I'm excited to go out and prove it. And I think maybe more than anything, maybe this is where I'll finish this off of, is just, I'm so curious to see who I am when I'm not beholden to all these things and I can just live a day in the life, like the reading, the guitar, jujitsu, listening to podcasts. Like if you would have asked me 5 years ago, what would your dream be? And I would say, you know what, like just wave a magic wand, like be as ridiculous as you want, be as silly as you want, like it doesn't have to make sense. I would say, man, if I could get paid to listen to podcasts, that would be my ultimate dream, right? And essentially what I'm looking at creating is a way to do that, of knowing that I'm going to have guests on, and I can put the research in, I can listen to all their podcast appearances, I can do that, I can really dive in, I can keep abreast of these topics and these sciences and these sports that I want to in the way that I want to through this medium that I love, and somehow find ways to monetize it all through all these ventures that I put out, and to still have that business side of that I love. I don't want to give up anything. I want to have everything. I want to live my life where I get everything I want. I don't want to settle for nothing. I want to squeeze this fucking fruit for everything. It's, life is so precious. Life is so weird. The fact that we're even here, that all the things had to come together, and evolution and what we go through and how close we are to one solar flare knocking it all out, or one volcanic eruption, just to do anything but try and live life and squeeze every fucking drop out of it and live it exactly where you're not forced to do anything you don't want to. I don't ever again want to be forced into something I don't want to do, because that's just reality. And life's always going to have that, but to minimize that as much as possible and to maximize everything you believe in and everything that really hits you deep and hits your soul. Whether it's music, like just the other day I found this Australian singer, her name is Tash Sultana, and I haven't, for those of you that listen to a bit, you'll know how many podcasts I listen to in a week. It's kind of absurd. I've listened to maybe 2 or 3 podcasts this whole week because I cannot stop listening to her music. It hits me in the soul like a way I can't even explain to you guys. I can't wait to have her on the podcast one day. She's pretty big, so it might be tough. But I'm so excited to just have something like last week where I just couldn't even get over the things that this lady was making me feel with her music, and just the way it hits my soul, and just like the emotions it brings out. To know that in the future, when I build this up to a point of when something like that happens where I find this person, I will get to experience on a whole new level of kind of what I've always dreamed about. Like I'd always fantasize as a kid when I'd find a new series of books, like I'd want to interview those authors, right? And to know that the next time someone hits my soul like Tash Sultana has this last couple of weeks, I'm going to be able to actually have a real chance of going out and taking that connection as far as I want to take it, and to dive into it, and to be able to ask those questions and hopefully get put in touch with someone like that. Like that is just such a cool idea. What kind of life is that? Like that's a fantasy life. And I want to, just because it's a fantasy life doesn't mean you can not get close to it. It doesn't mean it's all going to work out exactly how I pictured, where, I can have anybody on the world. I'm Joe Rogan, all that. Even if it never gets close, even if once a year you get a person on like that, or, every couple of months you get one guest that makes you feel that way, it's all going to be worth it. And I know it. And I believe in that. And I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm all these things. And, do I even want to get into this? Yeah, so I'm just going to get into it, I guess. So then there's also been one other thing that has been hurting me not to talk about and is a big piece of my life, and that is weed, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it. I smoke weed, and I have for probably 4 or 5 years now. I smoked it when I was in high school, didn't like it. I was so afraid once I smoked that my dad was going to catch me and I was going to be in trouble. And I was just so scared that I hated the experience. It was the worst. I was like, why would anybody smoke this shit? This is the fucking devil. Like, staying far away from this, right? So I just drank like a fish and, got blackout drunk on whiskey and puked everywhere. That was much better, obviously. So that's what I did. I just learned how to drink and stayed away from that. Didn't do any drugs. Didn't get into it. Smoked it again, I think maybe in university, I think in first year. Again, didn't like it, was scared I was going to get caught by the RAs or whatever it was. Just went to my room and fucking got on the covers and was scared, paranoid out my fucking face. But then in my last year of university, my 2 best friends kind of were like, you know what? Like, no pressure, but we think you just had bad experience. Like, just try it with us and see if it's fun. And it was an amazing experience. And I think this is going to sound silly to people that don't smoke. And just even the fact that this is a big deal to me, and I hope I can do it justice to even explain the whole conversation, but it really changed me. I found, and I guess I need to start off by, I have an addictive personality and I have to be very careful with what I bring in, right? Like, I talk about liquor, but liquor was never really something that hit me in that way where I knew I had to worry about it. I hated hangovers so much. I'm such a pussy. I fucking, alcohol is perfect for me because it's got these inbuilt things of things I don't like. I hate who I am I love who I am when I'm drunk. I just get braggy, and I hate, my ego really comes out when I drink, and I don't really like it. I cringe the next day. Like, I'm usually fun in the moment. I hold in high esteem how I am as a drunk. I feel like I'm a happy drunk. I'm very fun to be around. I feel like people really enjoy it. But to me, I don't like me when I'm drunk and all that. So in saying that, I never really had to worry about it. But I knew through other substances, other things, other relationships I've had in my life that I have this addictive personality. So that was something when I found weed, I had to be, and I still am to this day, very careful with it. I very much look at my relationship with it to make sure, because I think so many people, the thing I don't like about smoking weed is the perception. There's this taboo and people look at you like you are just the scum of the earth, the worst human being, like all the propaganda that is. And it's like, so you want to tell me that I've at the same time been running this huge company, like have all this stress on my back. I'm running a podcast. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to do the work. I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying to spread love. I'm trying to start compassion. But because I smoke this substance, I'm a bad person. I'm all this stuff, and I'm lazy, and I've never accomplished something, and I'm a loser. It's like, that's very tough. And I want to start fighting back against that, because it's been such an amazing thing in my life. From the time that I found it makes me introspective, and it makes me second guess all the things that I'm done. Am I doing enough? Right? Like, am I putting enough with this idea at work? Am I just, pretending that this is a good solution and going with everybody else? Am I being that person within exactly what I talked about at the very start of this, that person in that structure where nobody wants to say something, but this is the wrong call, but everybody said yes to it. So we're just going with it. And I can say that in the moment, but then if I get home and I smoke and I hear that and it's like, that is not the right call. I got to go in tomorrow, and first thing in the morning, I got to call Barry and Ingle, and we got to get on a call because that's not the right call. This is bad. We can't do this, right? Like, that helps me. I've never had that on alcohol. I've never been drunk in the, you know what? We gotta fire that guy. He's bad news, It's never happened, right? I can count fucking 1,000 times I've come to that realization, or something about myself, or really sat with a trauma and thought, why did that make you so mad today? What went into that? Like, you got to work on that, and really had compassion for myself, and leaves you a loving space. Like, it has been amazing for me, and it's really changed who I am, and it's chilled me out in my anger, and like, so many people over these last 4 years, like, man, you've changed so much. You're not that person I knew in university and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's not. And it's due to a million different things. I can't put that all at the altar of marijuana, because it's not a miracle drug and it's not for everybody. And it's dangerous too, right? You need to know who you are, because, there's serious issues. You can have a psychotic break. It's not for everybody. You can, a lot of times people, that have schizophrenia, they won't show for a long time, and they can be dormant within them. And that can be that thing, that little tenuous break with reality that brings you out of it. So you have to be careful, and you have to respect it, and you can't just treat it like it's nothing. But you also are demonizing it. Just pulls this amazing tool could really work for some people away from them. And that's the biggest thing that I hate. And I feel like one of the biggest things is not being able to talk to it, is knowing that at work, I don't want to talk about this because of all this taboo and stuff. And also my parents fucking hate it, and they say it's fine and they're fine with it. But I can see the look in their face. It hurts me really badly, to just the look of disgust and just like, oh, you're the fucking scum of the earth that I get from them, and I'm sure I'm going to hear from them after this, and they'll say, no, that's not what it is. But you can see it, and it's amazing. And I didn't really understand it, because I thought I was just feeling this, but I just thought, this is just me. This must just be my experience going through this. But then I talked to some other people that also smoke, and they said, and they, almost broke down to me how much trauma they have because of how they get treated about it, and how it's this amazing thing in their life, and how they have to, one of their biggest traumas is just walking through the world knowing that they're looked at as this lesser than human because of this thing. And it's like, man, maybe this isn't just me. Maybe this is a more common thing, and maybe I should be talking about this. And to know that I haven't been, and I've been keeping this, this big piece of my life that I really enjoy and has done amazing things for me. And I want to talk about, and I want to talk about all the different ways and the specifics of it, but I can't because I'm scared. It's not, I want to put it at the feet of all these other things and external, but it's not. At the end of the day, it's me being worried about the consequences, right? And it's easy, again, it's that armor. It's so easy to say, well, I can't talk about it because, what if work found out, right? But it's legal. What's work gonna fucking say? You know what I mean? Like, I'm still, fire me. Hilarious. I would make this joke all the time. Fucking fire me, right? Like, I was so ready. And again, this sounds bad and this sounds mean, but like, for the past while, I've been so ready. Like, I know what I want to do. I know where my future lies, and I know what I want to jump at. Like, fucking fire me, please. Right? So that's not an excuse, and that's not why. It's because I was scared. And it's because of all these other things, and scared of the taboo, and scared of who it's going to be. And I think what really hurts me is that, like, the biggest thing is my parents. But going back to the start of this, is my whole life, I've just done everything my parents want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's probably a lot of people. And I don't blame myself for that at all. I think that's natural. And I think that's going to put you down a pretty loving path, all things considered, if your parents care about you, right? And I think they do. And I think they put me onto this amazing path. And I think that's why this is such a struggle, is to see like, fuck, Nick, we put you on this amazing path. You have everything in front of you. Why are you throwing it all away? And it's like, it's hard to explain, right? And I hope that over time they'll get it and they'll understand it and why this is a big deal to me. But I know, like, specifically the weed thing was, my dad saying like, why is this that big a deal to you that you want to talk about this? And it's hard to explain that to somebody that just doesn't get it, right? That's just a big leap to take. And I understand that, but also at the same time, it's like, why are you so concerned about it? Because, as much as they can say what all their concerns about, what I believe they're concerned about it is, what are people going to think? And that's always been something that's hated me, because growing up, it was always about appearances and what are people going to think? And, cause it's small town bullshit, right? Like, when you live in a town of 7,000 people, you do one thing, everybody knows it, right? And it's all about your place in this little society of 7,000. What are people going to think? And I always hated that. Like, fuck what people think. Why do you care about what these people think? Like, we're better than that. Like, if you believe in who you are and you want to stand by it, who cares what people think? Because let them think that. That's only to their detriment. Because, if they don't catch on and say, oh man, this Nick guy's actually got something to say, and like, we should maybe, instead of saying, well, what is he doing? We should try and get on board, right? Like, people will catch up eventually. It all catches up. But to know that it's the fear of what other people think. And this is obviously me guessing. They've never said that that's their big fear to me, but that's, their fear is that they love me and they don't want to see me get hurt. And how do you blame them with all the propaganda that's been against weed and all this dangerous thing that it is, and none of the positive things that it can have? Obviously, you're going to think of it negatively, but to me, I think that's all bullshit. And I think the real worry is, what are people going to think because of all those taboos? And you can't blame them, because the taboos are there and people do think those things. You get to see the look in people's faces. But my thing is, well, let's change the taboos. Who cares about them? Let them catch up. Fuck. It's been legal for a couple of years. Wait, fucking 5-10 years. This is the funniest thing to me, is the amount of times I've heard, like, just adult people that have a different idea of what it is go, how are there, like there's 19 marijuana dispensaries in the city. We only have 4,000 people. Why is there 17 dispensaries? It's like, maybe more people fucking smoke than you think. You hold capitalism as this fucking holy altar that could do no wrong. And you just see, if the way you understand capitalism, you can't be surprised by that. You have to do the math in your head of, man, if there's this many, maybe more people do this. And maybe because of this fucking stupid taboo, more people don't talk about it. Right. And that's where I'm at, of just being the frustration of all this, and not, just feeling, among all the other things, of all the other changes that are coming too, just, I can't wait to talk about all this shit and just, let it what I've talked about and bullshitted you guys saying like, this is 100% authentic, Nick, like the whole time, even though I have these huge pieces that I'm keeping within myself because of all these other reasons, when I will 100% say all those reasons are bullshit. It's 100% just me being a coward and not doing it. And those reasons are easy, and they're easy armor to take off. But that's why I need to make a move like this and just throw that all off and go, you know what? There's nothing holding me back. If I'm not saying something, it's because I'm scared. And until I do that, I'm never going to get to that 100% vulnerable place that is what I believe is the building blocks upon all this stuff that's going to build. All this, as much as I believe in the model and how this can grow and all that stuff, that's only if you can get to that place where you're being 100% authentic. And if you have things holding you back, you're never going to get there. And I think to expect that within a year and a half, you're going to be at that point where you're 100% authentic, I think that's ridiculous too, right? I think that's why it's a 5 to 10 year journey, because that's how long it takes to get comfortable with speaking and finding your authentic voice and not letting all society's bullshit hold any of that back, right? So this is the way I can, strap some roller skates on and get further out ahead. Like this is my idea of the only way to do it. And it might not be great. It might crash and burn. And I know I laid a lot out here on kind of what I have coming, but that's only the beginning. I have so many bigger ideas than that, of like, that's all to build up the mechanisms in the machine to really break into the next stage. And I haven't even told you guys about that. And I'm excited about that, but that might be 20 years from now. I hope it's not. I hope that's in a couple years, and I hope we just keep doing crazier and crazier shit and people start to see it and people come on board and people start to help in that. And you know what? Only time will tell. And there's no sense in holding any sort of mental space for timelines or any of that, because it's going to happen when it's going to happen. It's going to work when it's going to work. And I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, of just the weird way that the universe sends you signs. As soon as I made this decision, as soon as, you guys probably got to hear me make this decision. I think it was already made before that, but that solo cast I did on the Coquihalla Highway on the way out to BC there a couple months back, I guess it was at this time, I had made this decision. I just knew that, my sister's wedding was the big thing on the thing. We just needed to get through that. And then as soon as that was over, to have this conversation and start the ball rolling of letting them know, October 1st, that's the date. This is when it's happening. The signs the universe has been sending me of, you're doing the right thing. This is the right call. Just the weird way things are working out. I'm so confident in it. It's awesome. And I haven't been getting those for a while because I've been in such a dark place that it's almost like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not getting those signs from the universe that you're on the right track. And now, as soon as I made this change, they're coming again. And I can't explain to you guys how over the moon I am to make this change and to finally be able to let you guys in on it too. And especially those people that have been riding with me since the start and always been sharing the shit and or maybe not sharing anything, but just in the DMs, like, hey, I really enjoyed this episode, and just to know that you're out there with me and that this is what it is, and that I can, all that you guys have been giving to me over this last year and a half that's been keeping me going, I can finally take all that, turn it into fuel, and kick out 100% of my effort and go to bat for you guys. If this is what you believed in, you believed in me, let me go prove you right? It's not just me proving some people wrong. It's me proving all you that believed in me right, and proving myself right. And that's what it is. And we can go out that, and that's a strong force. And that's something that, every corporation tries to build that type of loyalty and that type of thing, but that doesn't come from that. It comes from riding with and growing with somebody and having opportunity after opportunity to prove what you say and what you do are going to be the same thing. And that's where I've been trying to do that. And I've been very honest with you guys. I'm very vulnerable and very, very much, probably more than I'd like to reveal at times. And that wasn't even 100%. And I'm going to get more of that, and it's going to get more to that. And I'm sure that's going to scare a lot of people that care about me, because that's a scary thing of being that vulnerable is scary, even if it's not you. So I think that's a natural thing to have people hold you back. Well, maybe don't do that. Maybe just take the safe route because they don't want to see me get hurt. And I appreciate it, but I'm so 100% committed to this. I know I might get hurt. Oops, that's going to happen. So I'm so thankful for everybody for believing in me. I'm so thankful for everybody that doesn't believe in me. I'm thankful for my amazing family that has made me the person that I am today, that has given me this confidence to make a step like this and to step out into the unknown like this. I'm so thankful for everything that they've done, and not just my actual family and extended family, but my friends and the community in Slave Lake, Alberta, and all those people at the arena that made me who I am. And I'm just so thankful, and I want to take all that and really really drill down into it, find the core essence of what that is, of what I am and what people have made me into, and start to spread that. Because I think that, I find little words like love and compassion to kind of as stand-ins for what that really is, of what you need to be spreading. And that's close enough, but it's something more than that. And that's what this podcast is just kind of figuring out what that is. But I'm going to keep on going out and trying to search for what that is and spread it at the same time. Even though I don't know exactly what it is, I'm trying to spread it. And that's what the goal of this podcast is. And I think I know, because I've talked to people about this, and I always say, I'm always kind of talking about that random thing. I never really fully articulate what it is and that. And I'm saying, like, are you guys starting to get it? Like, if you listen, if I talk to someone that's listened to, over 10 episodes or something like that, and they get it. And that's awesome. And that's, even if we haven't found the words to this as a collective, as me, the podcaster, you guys as the listeners, we still haven't stumbled upon the exact wording of what that thing is. It doesn't mean we can't start spreading it as best with our best understanding of what it is, right? So I'll keep doing it. You guys keep doing it. I'm so excited to finally let you guys in on this news. And feel free to reach out and ask me more questions. I think I covered a good chunk of what it is and what it's going to look like, but I also might have missed some things. So if you have any questions, please reach out, because if you have the question, probably somebody else will too. And then I can probably just combine them all and answer them again on another one of these episodes. So thanks again. That was episode whatever it was of the solo cast. Really big one. And, like I said earlier, this come October 1st, I'll probably do another announcement thing, or just kind of let people know how they can help, what sponsors we brought on, and how they can do it. But there's going to be a time in the next couple of weeks that I'm going to need you guys to all, come in, help me out and really help launchpad this thing. So please look out for that. And other than that, just thank you all so much for everything that you've done. And I can't be happier with the decision that I made. And even though it's terrifying and there's so much headache and it's just a mountain of shit I got to do, I've never been more excited to jump into it and start attacking it. So, all right. Thanks, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Bye.